This is The Scoop for Friday.
I'm Josh Holton with the WMNF News headlines. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration has proposed a new rule for worker safety laws that would largely affect entertainment workers. WMNF's Zoe Sachs reports that these changes would weaken protections for workers and lessen the responsibilities for employers.
The new rule proposed by OSHA could potentially affect whether employees can be cited for work-related injuries or deaths due to heat. This creates concern around overall worker safety, as employees would have less responsibility over their workers in hot conditions where injuries are likely to happen. McKenna Schuler is a reporter for Orlando Weekly who has covered the proposed rule.
I think people should care because it's a worker safety issue. And when I say worker safety, that's people in your family, that's yourself, that's people in your community, neighbors, friends who work in different industries. And in Central Florida, it's pretty important.
With Florida temperatures reaching the 90s and sometimes hundreds during the summer, regulations for heat protection are very important. Schuler says these protections are especially important for workers in the entertainment industry.
When you're potentially reducing workplace protections for them, that means if they do get injured or hurt on the job, nothing really happens to their employer, and there's no kind of disincentive for the employer not to, fix these issues in workplace protection.
The proposed rule is now subject to a 60-day public comment period. Anyone can submit a comment in support or opposition of the rule at regulations.gov. For WMNF News, I'm Zoe Sachs.
Approximately 200 Marines have arrived in Florida from North Carolina to support ICE during its crackdown on undocumented immigrants. WMNF's Chris Young reports that one legal expert says this is lawful but concerning.
U.S. Northern Command says Marines will perform strictly non-law enforcement duties within ICE facilities. The country's Posse Comitatus Act restricts federal troops from participating in civilian law enforcement except in certain cases. Joseph Nunn, counsel at the Brennan Center for Justice, says the deployment is inappropriate but not unlawful.
Assuming that this press release is accurate and that these Marines do stick to an indirect sort of logistical support role, this deployment is probably lawful. That doesn't make it a good idea.
And Nunn says this has a major cost.
The more that we turn the military to face inwards, the more we distract the military and pull resources, time, and attention away from its core national security responsibilities.
This comes after the state opened Alligator Alcatraz, a migrant detention center near the Everglades. U.S. Northern Command tells WMNF that ICE will determine personnel needs at each location. Chris Young, WMNF News.
A group of Democratic state lawmakers who were denied entry to the controversial immigrant detention center in the Everglades asked the Florida Supreme Court yesterday to force Governor Ron DeSantis to provide immediate, unannounced access to the remote facility dubbed Alligator Alcatraz by state Republican leaders. Democratic Representatives Michelle Rayner, Anna Escamani, Angie Nixon were joined by Senators Carlos Guillermo Smith and Chevron Jones in seeking what is known as a writ of quo warranto, arguing that the DeSantis administration's refusal to grant entry July 3rd to the facility violated Florida law. The lawmakers were denied entry by 4 officials and told to schedule a tour, according to yesterday's lawsuit. The denial of entry was blatantly unconstitutional, according to the lawsuit filed on behalf of the legislators by Representative Ashley Gant and Representative LeBron Bracy Davis, who are attorneys. Emergency management officials on Wednesday invited state legislators and members of Congress to visit the facility on Saturday, setting up a 90-minute tour restricted to lawmakers. But the lawsuit said that the Florida law affords legislators broad access to inspect correctional facilities unannounced so they can observe the unadulterated conditions of the facility. But the lawsuit said the legislators' attempt to exercise their right to access the facility would not have affected the DeSantis administration's ability to cope with an emergency. The detention center, which state officials said can house up to 3,000 detainees, is also the focus of a lawsuit filed by environmental groups seeking a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction to put the facility on hold. Sunshine and possible showers today with highs in the lower 90s. Partly cloudy tonight with overnight lows in the mid-70s. Possible chance of a stray shower tomorrow with highs in the lower 90s. I'm Josh Holton with the WMNF News headlines.
This is The Scoop, recorded at WMNF Tampa.